Councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the Council for August 2020. My name is Councillor Margaret Thomas, and as Mayor I will be chairing this meeting. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on and share this message from the Elders. Kaya kaya broodiers, marmin and yoks, nuna de mort. Nichikulan Nalamaya, Kalamunda Budja, Yayi. Nanjurapan, Wadulas Kulan, China. Nunada Nicha, Nunga Budja, Nunga Burdias, Yayi. Burda, Cadillac, Burda, Kaya, Yunga. Hello, welcome to our leaders, men and women, who have come to our place today this evening. And I'm happy to see you all standing on Noongar land of their leaders, past, present and future. The operations of Council and the agenda for this meeting are governed by the provisions of the Local Government Act, standing orders and rules of conduct. All matters of business listed in the agenda will be dealt with as separate decisions of Council. Thank you for your attendance and interest. Are there any apologies and leave of absence previously approved?
Through the Chair, I haven't received any apologies tonight, noting that Councillor Billich isn't here and could arrive a bit later. And I haven't received any, or there are no leave of absence previously approved for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Public question time. We have a public question from Mr. Peter Forrest, and I would like to ask him to come into the chamber tonight and sit between our two beautiful councillors, Cannon and O'Donnell, and ask your question. So, and I'm sure you know the drill, name and address just for the minutes. Thank you.
How's that? Sorry. Madam Mayor, thank you. My name's Peter Forrest, 36 Panoramic Terrace, Kalamunda. Mine's a two-part question. A properly structured petition to Council from Probus Kalamunda, signed by 230 electors concerning absence of safe walkable pedestrian access to Kalamunda Town Centre, was deposited in the City Admin Office 2 days before the last Ordinary Council meeting on the 28th of July. I've been advised by the President of Probus that the petition has not yet been acknowledged back to Probus by Council as being received and regarding whether and when it will be responded to. Can Council please say what is intended? I can go on to the second part of the question if you like.
Please do.
The second part of the question is, Council has also received at the same time a supplement to the petition of comments made by various petitioners and retailers in the town centre during its circulation that should have some bearing on future work being actioned in Central Precinct and Hay Street. Can Council please comment on that also?
I can actually answer that for you, Mr. Forrest, and tell you that a report is coming out next month which will be detailed and will answer all of those questions. So if you could just be a little bit more patient.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Deputations. We have a deputation from Mr. Darryl Downing, and I would like to ask Mr. Downing to also come into the chamber. State your name and address, and you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Darryl Downing from 3 Quinda Close, High Wycombe. I'm speaking on item 10.2.1, the Kalamunda Road. Last time I sat here, I presented you with all the perceived problems that I could see with the Kalamunda Road proposal. Tonight, I'd like to offer some solutions. There are plenty of examples of roads that carry very large numbers of vehicles that also have nice streetscape. Anchorage Drive in Mindari is one. This road demonstrates that both can be achieved. It does take money, but when you're planning over a 20-year time frame, you want to make sure that you are making decisions that once implemented, you will not need to look at for another 20 years. It can be very embarrassing to spend $17 million on a road that makes it less functional. If you have a look at the screen, I've got some examples of dual carriageways. By using a dual carriageway system as demonstrated in the pictures, it solves a number of issues highlighted in the Kalamunda Road report. When using a dual carriageway with a 26-metre road reserve, vehicles have room to stop in the refuge area in the middle of the road. Less space is needed between vehicles to perform a right-hand turn, as vehicles are only required to cross one side at a time. As cars no longer will be nose to tail, it will make it easier to brake into traffic. Another issue solved is the PTA preference to stop in the carriageway. With a dual carriageway, they can do this and vehicles still have the ability to pass, as is the case with bin trucks. Cyclists are able to continue in their own lane the entire length of the road. All of these are positive safety outcomes. Having a dual carriageway will also have a true environmental benefit by allowing vehicles to travel the shortest distance required, therefore lowering emissions. On the second lot of pictures, there was pictures of Kalamunda Road, yep, that one. If you look at the setback of the developments that have taken part in Kalamunda Road over the last 15 years, they have been done to include a larger setback than original to increase the road reserve. I believe the vision for this road by past planners was a dual carriageway. There is already one on Kalamunda Road on the other side of Roe Highway in Maida Vale. Are the traffic volumes on this part of the road any different? The council has already approved an increase in density for properties located on Kalamunda Road. Maybe we could stay on the original course and insist that these developments continue to increase the road reserve. I'm sure the residents of these new developments would like the ability to drive on Kalamunda Road in the future. Some of the comments that I've heard that are negative for a dual carriageway is it will split the suburb. If you search Google, you'll see that almost all new developments have a dual carriageway running past their shopping centres. Examples of this can be seen in Banksia Grove, Ellenbrook, Alkimos and Coburn, to name a few. This will soon be seen in Hale Road, Wattle Grove. Interesting, considering the traffic volumes on Hale Road, according to Main Roads WA, are 4,000 vehicles per day less than Kalamunda Road. Another comment was that you'll no longer be able to turn right out of the streets, as there'll be a median strip the entire length, like Grey Eastern Highway. This is false, as Underwood Ave in Floria is a good example of how you can still have access to almost all streets. If this was part of a new development, the city would insist that this road would have to be dual carriageway. Are the needs of residents different depending on whether a DCP or a GDS or the city are paying the bill? Please revisit this review, as all residents now and into the future need your leadership. Please don't take the easy option, as it is a band-aid solution. If you want to get a feel for what is proposed, take a drive down Farrington Road in Leeming, or at least Google it. This was once a nice dual carriageway, but the City of Melville reduced it to one lane each way and put 4 roundabouts in 2 kilometres of road, all to reduce trucks. A major upgrade of Kalamunda Road is what is needed. The residents will thank you in the long run, as the money spent will at least make the road more functional. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions for Mr Downing? No. Thank you so much for coming to speak to us.
Thank you.
Are there any applications for leave of absence?
Through the chair, no.
Thank you. Confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting. Councillors, can I have a mover that the ordinary council meeting held on the 28th of July, as published and circulated, is confirmed as a true and accurate record of the proceedings? Councillor Blair, someone to second it? Councillor Stallard. Thank you. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. On the basis of the above motion, I now sign the minutes as a true and accurate record of the meeting of the 28th of July 2020. Councillors, I have a couple of announcements tonight. On behalf of the City of Kalamunda councillors and staff, I would like to express my sincere condolences to Dana Banjak and her family on the passing of Rod. Rod's contribution to the community of the City of Kalamunda, particularly in relation to the Forestfield United Football Club, was significant. Rod's drive and commitment contributed so much to the club. Councillor Cannon, Councillor Boyd, Councillor Sewell, Councillor Giardina and I attended the tribute game on Saturday, and I would like to congratulate all those club members on the very moving parade prior to the game as a tribute to Rod. The Banjak family will never forget that. We would also like to pass on our condolences to the Pickering Brook Primary School community and the Ernst family on the passing of Derek Ernst. Derek was a passionate principal of the primary school and was always planning projects and opportunities for his students. He worked closely with the school board and enthusiastically hosted the centenary celebrations in 2015. His contribution to the Pickering Brook community was remarkable. I'm sure Derek and Rod's legacies will continue long into the future. Are there any disclosures of interest?
Through the chair, first disclosure of interest is from Councillor Brooke O'Donnell in relation to item 10.4.6 on John Reid Oval. She's a member of the disclosing impartiality interests is a member of the Geographic Naming Committee. Being a committee rep, she recommends changes of names to the Minister. The second is from Councillor Mary Cannon in relation to item 10.4.6, proposed renaming of John Reid Oval, declaring an impartiality interest. Her husband is coach on the committee for the Forestfield Football Club. And Councillor Leslie Boyd declaring an interest on 10.4.6, proposed renaming of John Reid Oval, also declaring an impartiality. Unfinancial member of the Forestfield Football Club, is a coach within the year 9-10 girls team. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, we'll move on to the reports to Council. And could I please ask you tonight to ask your questions first rather than during the debate, unless the question comes up due to the debate. So we'll just make it a little bit smoother. So let's go to 10.1.1, the Varley Street Les Murdy. Are there any questions? The recommendation is on page 17. Do I have a mover? Councillor Giardina, seconded by Councillor Stallard. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 10.1.2, are there any questions regarding Cambridge Reserve Community Enhancement Project? Councillor Boyd.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for the Director of Development Services. Just wondering should this motion be carried and we go out seeking public comment and it comes back, I'm just wondering what would be the situation in regards to possible development should we not find a prospective aged care developer, and what constraints would that put on the development, if any, and could it proceed in, I don't want to say a piecemeal approach, but a piecemeal approach, or is the future development of that area reliant on finding an aged care provider to develop that section of it and everything around it subsequently?
Director of Development Services.
Through the Chair, thank you for your question, Councillor Boyd. The development is able to be phased, so it's able to be phased in terms of its delivery, and components could be delivered prior to the aged care. Should an aged care provider not be interested in developing the site, that's a matter that we'll have to grapple with should that situation arise through future expressions of interest process. But we have had engagement with a number of providers over the years around the potential for the site, and had an indication in terms of what an appropriate size and those sorts of things should be, and also reflecting on the city's experiences with recent aged care facilities that have been delivered in similar areas in the city's foothills. So we'll have to deal with that should the matter arise. But in terms of the eastern and western wings of the development and the proposed residential aspects of that, they could proceed prior to the aged care facility developing, depending on the phasing and staging of the development when we get to the point of actually rolling out the infrastructure.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation on page 31? Councillor Boyd, seconded Councillor O'Donnell. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 10.1.3, are there any questions regarding the development services update? Can I have a mover that the officer recommendation on page 44, Councillor O'Donnell, seconded Councillor Sewell. If there's not going to be any debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Wattle Grove Cell 9 Development Scheme Report. Are there any questions? Is there a mover for the officer recommendation on page 56? Councillor Boyd, seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Kalamunda Road Functional Review. Are there any questions? Councillor Sewell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just seeking a response to some of the issues raised in the deputation that we heard earlier, particularly in relation to dual carriageways. I just note, with the example of on Farrington Road, for instance, that Murdoch Drive has now been built as a way to ensure that traffic can move smoothly within that vicinity. I'm just wanting to get an understanding from the city's perspective why a dual carriageway wasn't taken into consideration.
Director of Asset Services.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the Chair, I'll reflect upon in July 2019 we provided Council with two predominant options for Kalamunda Road, being dual carriageway or single carriageway high capacity local road. Council determined, based on in part the community feedback, to take the second option, which is the basis of the further consultation being considered tonight and the adoption. So both options were prepared and Council deliberated and determined to take the option that's currently adopted. In terms of some of the commentary buses standing on the carriageway whilst passengers alight and embark and disembark, I should say. You would probably realise that they are fairly fleeting and fairly momentary standings of the traffic, and the question comes down to simply is the Public Transport Authority do not support embayed bus bays anymore unless it's a timed bus stop where the bus has a reasonable standing period to reset its timetable.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just finish? Having said that, PTA have changed that policy at least 3 times that I know of and have gone backwards and forwards.
Follow-up question, Councillor Sewell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My follow-up question is in relation to the amount of land or houses that would have to be acquired to enable a dual carriageway. Do we have an understanding of that?
Director.
Through the Chair, I can't put my fingers exactly on the 2019 report that touched upon that, but it was significant with some of the intersection treatments requiring the quadrants land houses to be taken up. So it was a much larger land take than what's required under this option.
Councillor Stella, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, through the Chair. If I remember correctly, Director, the costing was another factor. Do you have any recollection of the differences in costing general, if not specific? Whatever you can come up with, if that's possible at all, please.
Councillor, if the Chair wishes, we could defer this for a half hour or so on the agenda, and I just get to the minutes of the relevant meeting, and I can update the information at that point in time if you're disposed in that regard.
Councillors, are you happy to move this to the back? Do I need a mover?
I'm happy to do that, Madam Chair.
So we'll have a mover to take it to the back. Councillor Giardina, seconded by Councillor Sewell. All those in favour? Thank you. So we're just going to park this.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Councillor Billich is waiting outside. I noticed that she was going to declare an interest on Kalamunda Road, but she can now enter the room if she's still out there.
Perhaps we could ask someone to go and find her.
Yeah, we're finished.
Councillor Billich joined the meeting at 6:55. Thank you. So we'll move on to 10.3.1. Councillors, do you have any questions regarding the Kalamunda Chamber of Commerce Partnership Agreement? No questions. Then do we have a mover for the officer recommendation on page 74? Councillor Sewell. Seconder. Councillor Boyd. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The Community Sporting and Recreation Facility Funding Program. Are there any questions? Is there a mover for the officer recommendation on page 83? Councillor Sewell, seconded by Councillor Ritchie. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The Ray Owen Sports Centre Management Committee. Are there any questions regarding this item? I understand Councillor Giardina is going to move the officer recommendation on page 88, seconded by Councillor Stallard. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Councillors, do you have any questions regarding the Sturt Park Master Plan, Stage 1 Concept Design? No questions. Can I have a mover? Councillor Blair would like to move this, seconded by Councillor Ritchie. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Councillors, do you have any questions regarding the customer service results for 2019-2020? No questions. Can I have a mover for the officer recommendation on page 109, moved by Councillor O'Donnell, seconded by Councillor O'Connor. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The Strategic Community Plan Review. Are there any questions? No questions. Can I have a mover for the officer recommendation on page 114? Councillor Sewell, seconded by Councillor Boyd. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 10.4.6, I'm going back to the CEO to just remind us that there are disclosures of interest regarding this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Disclosures of interest from Councillor Brooke O'Donnell as being a member of the Geographic Naming Committee, declaring an impartiality interest. Councillor Leslie Boyd is a coach and an unfinancial member of the Forestville Football Club, declaring impartiality interest. And Councillor Cannon, her husband is a coach on the committee of the Forestville Football Club, also declaring an impartiality interest.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions regarding this report? Councillor Sewell.
Just be good to get some context as to why this recommendation has come forward to council, as to why the justification for the name change. I've read the details and analysis, but I'm still not quite clear.
Who would like to take that?
The Manager of Public Relations and Customer Service.
Thank you, Manager.
Thank you. So if I can just clarify, Councillor Sewell, your question is in relation to why this report and recommendation has came forward to council? Thank you. So the reason that this particular report has came to council is because the city has received a request to undertake a name change. The city doesn't currently have a policy in relation to names, changes of names, etc. And as a result, all items, as I'm aware, that relate to the changing of names have came before council. In this particular case, in reviewing the request and the fact that it was a request to rename, the city referred back to Landgate's policy, which it has utilised as the basis of previous recommendations. And in reviewing that, officers are recommending the development of a policy for the City of Kalamunda, and that's the reason that the recommendation is worded in the way that it is. I hope that that clarifies, but I'm happy to take a follow-up if it doesn't.
Are there any other questions, councillors? Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I'm just wondering whether you're able to tell us if there's been any other requests, say in the last few years, for similar request change of names. Are we aware of any?
Only the one that, thank you for the question, Councillor Ritchie, only the one that I referred to at the public agenda briefing. So there was one previous request that has came to council for renaming. It was Willoughby Park on the corner of Sanderson Road. It had been an unnamed reserve, unknown reserve that the late Mr. Barry Oldfield studied and found some flowers on that site, and he then actually put to the city it should be called Willoughby after the street. At the time, the city found no reason specific for the reason of the street being Willoughby, and in his passing, the community wrote to the city and asked that it be referred to as Barry Oldfield Park. The city undertook extensive consultation in relation to that, because that is required for any naming or renaming in accordance with the policy that Landgate has, and that eventually was supported by council and was put forward to Landgate, the committee, etc.
Are there any other questions? Is there a mover for the officer recommendation on page 118? Councillor O'Donnell, seconded by Councillor Sewell. Councillors, is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 10.5.1, I thank Councillor Ritchie for her questions and for sharing them with the rest of the councillors. Are there any other questions regarding the debtors and creditors report? May I please have a mover for the officer recommendation on page 125, Councillor O'Connor, seconded by Councillor Stallard. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The draft monthly financial statements. Are there any questions? The officer recommendation is on page 133 and I would like to move this myself, Councillor Thomas, seconded by Councillor Blair. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 10.5.3, I have a question to the Director of Corporate Services. I would just like to know, in view of COVID-19, how we are travelling with regard to collecting rates and revenue. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Through the Chair, rate specific, as you'll see in the report, we've collected just over 7.332% of our rates, or near enough to 2.9 million, which is roughly comparable to the same time last year. With respect to revenues on the whole, as at close of business last night, we had collected just a tad over 30 million. Compared at the same time last year, we had collected about 30.4 million. So we're down about 400,000 in terms of total revenue close of business yesterday. So the city is monitoring cash flow on a daily basis in terms of our total revenues. We have observed in the last week an increase in the number of people that are moving to instalment arrangements. We're up for about 100 in the last week. So we'll just see how that plays out as time goes by to get some more meaningful trends.
Thank you. A question from Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wondering if you could let us know how many ratepayers have sought assistance under the money we've put aside for that. Thank you.
Who would like to take that question?
The last one was 35, is it? Yeah, sorry, I was just conferring. The last number I had was 35. So we had a total of 35 individuals. And in addition to that, about another 25 businesses. And then, don't quote me on the last one, but I'm thinking 5 community groups. So we're sitting around the mid-60 point of people that have applied for financial assistance. And that was close of business Friday.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Is there a mover for this report on page 137, the officer recommendation? Councillor Blair, seconded by Councillor Stallard. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. 10.5.4, the Bushfire Advisory Committee. Councillors, do you have any questions? Councillor Ritchie.
It's more an observation, I suppose. I'm just wondering, I noticed that provided the motion passes, noting and congratulating Mr David Stewart as the new captain, is it appropriate for the council to write to Mr Stewart to congratulate him on that appointment? It's such an important job. It's just really more of a question if it was appropriate to do so.
Perhaps I could ask the CEO to respond to that.
So I'm writing to Duncan Reynolds, acknowledging his services. I'm writing to the Rescue Fire. So, yes, if you would like me to send him a letter as well, happy to do so. No problem whatsoever.
Are there any other questions?
I'm just going to move it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Giardina. Is there someone to second this motion? Councillor Ritchie. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Moving on to Amendment to local planning policy, the public art contribution. Are there any questions? Can I have a mover for this motion on page 147? Councillor Ritchie, seconded by Councillor Blair. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. And I would like to ask...
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, Director Brett Jackson is ready to answer the questions around Kalamunda Road. But before we do, now that Councillor Billich is in the room, would you like to hand over your declaration, Councillor Billich?
So, councillors, we're going back to the report on page 57.
Just a moment, I'll just give you this now that you need it again. Thank you.
So I'll go
Make
to
it
the
official.
CEO.
Councillor Billich is declaring a direct financial interest in relation to item 10.2.1 Kalamunda functional review, direct financial interest in 2 properties located on Kalamunda Road. Thank you.
And we'll note that Councillor Billich has left the room. So we'll go back to the Director with the information you have found for us.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair and councillors and members of the public. Okay, so in July 2019, the Council considered a report outlining the 2 predominant options, being a dual carriageway road of high capacity, effectively known as a district distributor, or the option for a lower capacity main street. The report included the technical assessment by our consultants, and I'll draw attention to section 4.5 of the attachment report in July 2019, where it assessed the likely land encroachment to undertake either the lower capacity main street or the distributor road, either a 19 or a 26 metre road reserve. And the plans that were attached to the report showed that there was easily a 5 to 6 times greater land requirement to do the dual carriageways than what's required and is indicated in our concept designs for this report this month, stretching from Abernathy Road as far east, effectively to the shopping centre near Newburn, and then starting effectively from Rangeview right back to the Roe Highway. So that was the extent of land take required. It also noted that the distributor road would require 8 encroachments and intersections requiring significant rebuild. The report was a high-level report. It did not cost both options. That was the stage 2 works once Council determined a preference. Council, having determined the preference in July 2019 for the low capacity main street, that allowed us then to develop the concept costings which were in the report tonight. Does that assist Council in that regard?
Thank you, councillors. Are there any other questions? Councillor Giardina.
Madam Chair, thank you. Director, did we advertise the dual lane? Was that put out?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the Chair, that was undertaken through early 2020 as part of the concept discussion. So in July 2019 we produced the report. We went to the community and consulted on both options, and in March 2020 Council adopted the lower capacity main street option.
Sorry,
Follow-up question, Councillor Giardina.
Was that based on the community consultation feedback, or just the Council wanted to go with the one lane?
The community feedback was favouring the lower capacity main street, and Council considered that, I believe, when they made the decision over that road's topography over the other topography in March 2020. which allowed us then to commence concept designs and final consultation on the road cross sections that we have got here tonight before us.
Follow-up question.
Follow-up question?
How widespread was that consultation undertaken, do we know?
I'll thank you through the chair. I'll actually defer to our manager.
Thank you.
She's got the full bottle.
Thank you. And if I can just confirm, so the first lot of consultation was actually back in March 2019. So it was in 2019 that the first lot of consultation was undertaken. Consultants Cardno were engaged in undertaking that work. It included survey drop to the entire suburb of High Wycombe. So from memory, it was about 4,500 households. There was also a number of drop-in sessions, and there was a pop-up that was held at the Kalamunda, the High Wycombe Shopping Centre, Peter Cincinnati Shopping Centre, as a part of that project. So that was all then fed into the consultation report that came back to council at that time. And from there, we've then done a second lot of consultation in relation to this current concept.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, councillors? If not, is there a mover for the officer recommendation on page 65? Councillor O'Connor and seconded by Councillor Sewell. Councillors, is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Boyd, you're in favour? Sorry. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Perhaps we could ask Councillor Billich to return. Councillors, there are no motions of which previous notice has been given. Are there any questions by members without notice? Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question relates to the feasibility study into the aquatic centres for the city. Can the CEO advise when the report will be coming back to council in a completed version?
We haven't set a date yet. The consultant is still finalising his report. So until we get that report, we can't set a date to bring it through to a council meeting. So I'm expecting, hopefully, he would be finished in the next 1 to 2 months, so we can bring it back by the end of the year, tentatively.
Other questions?
Oh, sorry, follow-up question.
Oh, follow-up question, Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you. Unrelated, could we, I just want to highlight another issue, Milner and Motorvale Road, cars parking on the verge. The staff are aware of it, but just can we have another campaign of reviewing the verge parking, which is blocking off vision for that T section? So, yeah.
Through the
Director
chair.
of Corporate Services? Development Services?
That's okay. Through the chair, thank you for your question, Councillor O'Connor. The area ranger for High Wycombe is aware of this particular issue, and it was raised with them further today, the issues that were brought to your attention, and it will be kept on our radar.
Are there any other questions without notice? Councillor Ritchie.
I think Councillor Sewell was first.
Oh, sorry, Councillor, I missed you. Councillor Sewell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was a comment, so feel free to shut me down if it's not appropriate. I just wanted to 10.1.3 acknowledge the additional workload undertaken by staff as a result of COVID. I did look at in detail the significant impact that COVID has had on their workload, and I just think it's worthwhile acknowledging staff and their efforts and their adaptation over this time.
Thank you, Councillor Sewell. Councillor Ritchie.
This is a question probably without answer to the Director of Development Services. I've had a number of queries, and I understand it was on a commercial radio station indicating that a McDonald's was going on the old IGA site. I'm just wondering if you could perhaps indicate whether we've had any development applications for that site, please.
Thank you for your query, Councillor Ritchie. And through the chair, the city hasn't received any informal or formal queries in regards to a potential fast food outlet at that location.
I've also had several people ask me about McDonald's, so that word is getting around, so I don't know where it came from. A bit like the nests. We don't know where the nests came from either. Are there any other questions by members without notice? No. There are no questions by members of which due notice has been given. There is no urgent business. There is no reason to close the meeting. So we will close the meeting.
No reason to close the meeting.
No, sorry. There is no reason to go behind closed doors, so we'll close the meeting at 7:16. Thank you very much, councillors.